All right, my mic is on. Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. My name is Brogan, and today we are back for another training stream, okay? I'm going to be efficient today, all right? I'm not going to dilly-dally. We're going to start a timer, and we're not going to waffle, okay? I'm going to get straight into it. Hopefully you've all done, had a great day so far. Maybe it's your morning, hopefully you've had a nice sleep or whatever. But I'm professional today, and I promised myself this stream I'm going to try and be as professional as possible and not yap, okay? That is just the rule. I'm going to tell everyone that it is live now, and we'll get straight into it. Okay, I'm not gonna waste time. 116.04805 nearly for Bitcoin, pretty good. Obviously we've been talking about us retracing on the higher time frame. For Bitcoin to come up to a lower high on like the daily, weekly time frame, and then come down lower. It's kind of what we've been talking about on Thursday, I believe. Yep. And so I believe we're just kind of in the process of doing that. Obviously, I do want to look at it in some detail because I want to make sure we're still following suit with that kind of idea and still going upwards. Anyway. So that's Bitcoin doing pretty well. Again, 0.18% up, 24 hour, kind of hovering, 0.22 on a 7-day. So most of our pump has recovered a bit. We have had a bit of a retracement again. On this kind of can bounce on like the idea of really making sure you pay attention to high time frames and current time frames. Let's say it's the 1 hour, 4 hour, whatever you trade, and then you're also making sure you look at the daily, maybe even the weekly, because the chart can be so different on just a different time frame. Let me make sure my PC audio is muted because I'm hearing a lot of blips. Anyway, generally on the idea of making sure that you're paying attention to both higher time frame and lower time frame, even though obviously price is moving the same way on all charts. Again, price is a constant. Price is always, it's not like it's going to show differently, but the makeup of the chart obviously will be different on the weekly in comparison to the 4 hour, and the situation relative to the weekly can be totally different relative to the daily, for example. So that's why even though on the 4 hour, on the relative day to day for Bitcoin, we might have a big retracement, but may also have potential to continue to go up again as we are in the process on the weekly or whatever it is, exactly the time frame, to go up to our high point and then come down. So anyway, I will look at Bitcoin obviously in a second. Ethereum 4,500 again, continue to retrace to support from our massive pump, well, not massive pump, but a decent high. You can kind of see it on the right. I don't know if the right is showing. No, it's not. Never mind, we'll get onto it obviously, but we were stuck at support. We weren't moving a single bit for Ethereum. Obviously I had spent 4 streams, where it was, saying I want Ethereum to go back upwards. I want Ethereum to find a nice little pump, and obviously we finally have done that, but it's taking its sweet time to actually it had taken its sweet time to actually do anything. So again, we are still continuously in that retracement, I do believe anyway. On the last 7-day, from what I'm seeing on my on the right hand side of CoinMarketCap, it's pretty much just the entire move we've had on the move up and the move down. So we're kind of flowing still. Again, 3.5% down 7-day. We've taken a while to do this. Again, we will go onto it, but I'm still happy about Ethereum, although opinions may change. Obviously opinions may change, but 299 for XRP. I did look at XRP maybe a stream before last, so I probably should look at it again. My camera's gone blue, hopefully it doesn't move me. But I'll try to look at XRP again. I don't think I did it last stream, so I'll try that. 4.58% down 7-day. Again, we were talking about resistance above us, and then coming to that area and then coming down. So I do believe we hit there, maybe $3 something. I think there was some news on XRP as well, to be fair. So I do think we had a little bit of a pump from that. 240 for Solana. So I think that's pretty good. I don't know where the high was, but we have slightly retraced from the high gap we had. Again, Solana's kind of in the air right now. The only thing I was talking about on Thursday was how I really wanted to wait till today to actually really talk about Solana, because of the fact that we could retrace and then go upwards, or as I wanted to go retrace and go upwards, or were we going to continue and not hit this? Because the amount of times we've gone to potential sell areas for Solana and ignored it, it's something I want to be careful of. Other than that though, Sui, again, we'd come from $3.80, $3.90 area, whatever it was. We had that massive pump. Obviously, in our massive uptrend, again, Sui has been a really good chart so far. And obviously, we continue to do that. Again, $3.70, a bit of retracement from our high point. I do think we're going to continue this trend. So he's been really nice to look at so far. Obviously, I know Tito has been interested in Sui. I've really enjoyed looking at it on stream, because it's been a really nice, simple chart to look at. So again, we will go over that as well. I think I will look at CRO. Again, I'm going to search Serpent CRO and then move on. So it's up 43 cents. I think that's still down from our continuation downwards. So I think we're still doing fine with that. And then the last one I'll look at for now, 23, 25. Yeah, CRO's still in that area of 22. Again, I wanted 22 cent for a while. We do potentially still have a bit left to go down. Obviously, I was still talking about last stream that we could potentially be in trying to reverse, but we have failed to get past resistance, which is fine. Again, I don't normally, whenever I look at the charts, I don't normally want to talk about the potential of us reversing rather than just looking at price action. So that was obviously something which I mentioned during Thursday, that I don't believe CRO will reverse right now, but we do have potential if we were to reverse this resistance area to start to go upwards. But I don't think we've done that. So again, obviously we'll look at it. I don't think we reverse the resistance, so we might not be going up right now for CRO, but obviously we will look at it again. But that's pretty much it on CoinMarketCap. I did want to quickly go into economic calendar just to see anything's going on, in the future. Obviously today or last week, obviously we had some interest, but it's obviously been and gone now. I just went to highest impact in the following week. Pretty much just looks like it's Tuesday's got Powell's speech, I guess, but other than that there might be some interest here, but in terms of what I recognize as something which has a massive effect on the market, I don't really see too much going on. Obviously this may change, but obviously I don't really see too much going on, so that's good. Again, nothing really outside of the charts which will creep up on us and cause chaos in the charts, so we should be fine. Anyway, I've gone through all I possibly can in terms of the preliminary. We can actually go onto the charts now. I did want to look at World Liberty Finance because I haven't done that in a while. Let's zoom in a bit because I do want to talk about what we've done lately. So again, obviously I missed off World Liberty Finance last week because I didn't really want to talk about it too much, but I thought, you know what, it's in my sidebar. Obviously you can see on the right hand side all the charts I have saved. I could also actually look at Moon as well, just to have a quick glance at how it's going, but I haven't really looked at World Liberty Finance. Actually, I should say hello to everyone. Itachi, hello. Mags, Tio, Kishan, shout out to you all for being here. I know it's a lot earlier. I'm not expecting a lot of people to be here who are normally here. Actually quite a lot of people here anyway on YouTube, but I didn't expect there to be too many people in this stream because I know I'm doing it a lot earlier than I normally do, so obviously apologies for that. I'm busy later and I needed to schedule the stream for a bit beforehand, but I'm glad some of you are here. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Anyway, let's continue. So hello to all. Hopefully you've had a great day so far. Anyways, World Liberty Finance. I wanted to talk basically about this area so far. Basically coming from about Friday. Again, obviously Thursday was back here. We were kind of floating a bit. What I marked out were all these highs here. We had a lot of kind of this whole area. But as soon as you come above these highs, you kind of need to. You can't use this over here. So you kind of need to look at the biggest areas. So we had this whole area here, which we kind of took most of this with this move, and then we had some highs here. So we had a good collection of highs to focus on. We had this massive dump. We had this gap here, which we were obviously kind of sitting at as a price range to sit in. Failed to get past any lows down here. So again, in this area, clearly showing we've obviously come into this gap and filled it, but we haven't had a massive response coming downwards, and we've also not got past any major lows here, any printing. So again, you can see some lows over here, we've whipped past them. So the idea that we could have swept these lows, and on the idea that, okay, cool, we might have done this and now we might start going upwards. Equally as well, with this move, you can see, especially only within this set of candles here, we have that move down below these lows. So we clearly have formed a bit of support here. So as we continue onwards, if we bring this across to us, we can see we kind of come up one more time to take some of these highs, retrace, find our support point, and then pump as well, taking out both of the two most equal highs here. So again, targeting these highs here, we had resistance on the 15-minute here, I will show in a second. So we've got a bit of setup here to continue a bit higher for this area we had about Friday time, Saturday, or earlier today maybe, within over here. Going to the 1 hour though. Can see this in a bit more detail. As you can see, even on the 1 hour, when you have these moves, that's not what I want to pick up. There we go. When you have these moves past these lows, especially within this area, especially this low, and you have this massive move down and then a retracement, which basically means you don't print past any of these lows. Obviously, we had this low. I suppose we were in this mini downtrend to go down in our trend, but especially for the major areas back here, when you have these massive move downwards and then this move back upwards, which means you don't print past any of these lows, is clearly a sign that we're not going to be continuing down in this period to get towards 20.5%, let's say. I think people call it turtle soup, people call it different things, equity sweep, whatever you want to call it. It's just one of those kind of these market movements, which kind of mean a thing where you come past these lows and then you start to go in the opposite direction, if you will. Anyway, we had that and then came above into this last high, obviously taking this one and then having a bit of retracement here, producing equal highs here. So a good target when you have these equal highs here as well. Also having a resistance here. If we go to the 15-minute, I will show it. We can see we had the 1 hour set of candles upwards and then a massive dump. So obviously a idea of resistance. But if you enhance it on the 15-minute, you can see we have the move upwards and then we have a candle down and then these 3 candles here, which then get printed through with this. And then you can see we go back upwards and hit on that midpoint. So clearly for the enhanced order block, because what I obviously did firsthand as I was drawing this just before the stream, you have this whole set of candles here, which yes, technically a series of candles upwards, which then proceeds in a massive kind of dump, is going to be a resistance area, but you can go to lower time frames and enhance it, if you will, where you find the actual pinpoint candles or where it actually happens, and you can see it used a lot nicer. Anyway, doesn't matter. Going back to the 1 hour here, bringing this across, obviously, to current day. We have obviously this area. We've come into this massive resistance area. We've come to multiple times previously. Obviously, came to it shy of there, came to it here, and whatnot. I think we had another one somewhere. Here we go. So you can see, obviously, it came to there, came to it here, shy of it here. But you can clearly see this whole area. I know it's very big. Obviously, it's a quite a generous range, about 25 to 23 cents. Obviously, quite a big range. I get that, but midpoint area roughly where you want to be focusing on, especially when you, and the reason obviously I believe we failed to get towards that midpoint again in this move was because we had that previous swing here which formed that resistance a bit lower down, so we didn't quite get above it. You can see really tight on that top end here, maybe about 0.001 cent away from that top end of that resistance, which obviously we just looked at. So using this, obviously finding this point. Now I want to really point this out because again, obviously, you know, when I look at the charts on these streams, I don't really point out setups in terms of specific things people make. Now, I am aware of a few setups which, you know, concern, you know, order blocks, breaker blocks, gaps, you know, equilibriums. I am aware of multiple. I did want to point one out today, which I don't normally do, and it is this. So there is a model I'm aware of. Again, I wanted to do something where I wanted to collate a bunch of models because again, when I look at the charts on my streams, it's more a thing where it's just a general analysis of the charts and not a exact setup method where I come on the stream, go, guys, here's the setup, you know, trade this. But I did want to make a collation of different setups for you guys if you are interested. I know Tito has been looking at some of the things I've sent him, so obviously if he's interested in that, I will send it him. But this is what I want to point out here. So there's something, I can't remember the exact name of the setup, but basically it concerns a few things, and I will point them out. So the first one is they call it obviously a liquidity sweep, but an idea where you come to an area of sell, or in this case a sell. So these highs, for example, is going to be what we're focusing on. So we've got that. The next point in the checklist, if you will, is a breaker block. So what that is an idea of, you know, we have these, you know, these up candles here, which then get printed through. Sorry about the bike. These candles get printed through in an area of resistance is an order block, and I have used this word a lot of times, I should say, a lot of times on stream, and obviously some of you might not know what that means. Basically, I'm not going to give like a massive 10-minute, you know, talk and examples of this, but it's kind of like this obviously we're in a higher point of resistance. We kind of print up and then print through these candles and then use them as resistance. It's kind of the idea. It's not, you know, the exact, you know, it's that's really simplified version of what it actually is, but you come into an area of sell in this case, or point of interest, whatever you want to call it, and then it's the last up close candle before a massive down close and then resistance. And obviously you can see in this case we use it really nicely with this midpoint. Midpoint's a good area to focus on. Obviously in this case was a reversal, and as you can see we had a gap here which obviously got inverted for this range, so that obviously helps to add on to it. And this is one of the most important things obviously I try to talk about on my streams, is whenever I talk about these formations or talk about these things which occur in the market, it's more a thing where it's not you see one thing and you trade that and that's it. It's a collation of multiple different things. So obviously in this case we have this resistance gets formed with this move into the resistance to then have a massive dump. This is now going to be resistance, obviously you can see the midpoint. So yes, you could use this by itself, but also we have this range. It's called a balanced price range, where you basically have you know, you have a little gap here and then you print up above it and have a gap here, and you print down, you have a gap here. So this whole range, especially within these two candles here, or this move up and this move downwards, you can see we have this nice range here which can get traded back into. So for the fact that we are in resistance, we don't want to be we don't want a long, and this is obviously where context comes in, and this is why you can't just use a lot of things. And some people they learn a strategy, whether it be what I'm talking about or something completely different, and they apply it systematically every single time. And obviously the markets, yes, there's majority of it is systematic, but there is also people trading, and there's reasons for things to happen. It's not just a 1 or 0. And I think a lot of people at the very start of whatever they may do, whether it be just price action or oscillators or whatever it may be they use to trade, they'll apply every singular example of a long or a short, and they'll apply it every single time. Now, maybe on the lower time frames that might work, but when it comes to the market as a whole, if you look at the higher time frame or lower time frame, context is probably one of the most important things to pay attention to. So, for example, people might trade some on the 5 minute, not look at the higher time frames, and they'll have quite an often amount of time, they'll have a setup occur. Like, okay, cool, I'm supposed to sell, and then the price absolutely pumps, and people may blame that on the fact that, oh well, this strategy doesn't work. Why isn't this working? Randomly the price went up. I do believe a lot of people, they voice their reasons before they even understand what's going on, and they don't even use actual context in the market, like where we are we oversold, are we overbought, simplified anyway, and really look at where the market actually is. Because why would you be buying in this situation when you've come into a massive high time frame resistance point? So why would you be looking at long this? I know I'm yapping, but this is just more about people. This isn't just about this in particular. It's about people in general. Wherever you are. I think for me anyway, one of the most important things, no matter what strategy you're using, is look at the higher time frame before you go into whatever time frame. Look at the daily, look at the weekly, look at the 1 hour, 4 hour, whatever relative time frame you use. Just really, even if you've already looked at it yesterday, look at it again. And just make sure you know what's going on the higher time frame and where you are relative on the grand scheme of things before you start trading on lower time frames or whatever it's going to be. Anyway, completely off topic. Let's get back onto the charts. So in this case, we had a confluence. We are in a higher time frame resistance. We're looking to sell. We are back in the range. Obviously, this is equilibrium. This is optimum range here. You can see we're back in this area here. So we're in major sell area potential. We've just formed this gap here. We've produced it upwards. We don't want to be looking at any of this right now. We don't want to be looking at, okay, we've inverted this gap. We want to buy here because we have resistance. Why would we do that? We come back down. Okay, we've now formed resistance now, and now we have more confluence to actually sell. We don't want to just randomly sell on a random little gap we just formed. We don't want to just randomly sell. You need a setup of different reasons of why you can sell. You need to have as much chance as possible as selling, and obviously we form that. But anyway, that is what an order block is. I know I'm talking about 4 different things in one go, but this is an order block just as a simple thing. But going back to what I was talking about 10 minutes ago, from what it seems like, is a breakup block. So what that is, so let's go back to the 1 hour and I can talk about it. So same concept, where we've had that down close, we've come into a gap, so a point of interest, whether that be something on the daily, on the 1 hour, something relative on the same time frame, so 1 hour to 1 hour here, somewhere where there's going to be a buy or sell, or somewhere where there's going to be reason for you to come up, come down, and to respond off of. So in this case, we have a massive gap here. Obviously, we're kind of in this mini downtrend, and this candle prints us above these major highs on the 4 hour. So clearly, this is going to be a very important candle, which has a massive buy area here, which continues upwards. So this is going to be a good buy area. We come back down, we use it, we come back up into resistance, and you can see we take this candle. So this would be a support point. This would be a support point. This would be a positive order block. However, we've come into resistance. We're coming to the higher time frame, everything basically. Higher time frame, resistance. There you go. And then we dump. Obviously, we form support here. Again, same concept here. You have a set of candles. You could use the individual candle. There's many different things. Some people don't use this series of candles, but if you actually go off the person who made this, you're supposed to use a series of candles. But whatever. You can see the midpoint gets used there equally as much. You use this one. You can see the top end gets used. There's multiple different ways of looking at the same thing. But if you look at the high time frame, this is what you're looking at here. Going back to the 1 hour, you can see how it's used pretty nicely on the midpoint. Anyway. So we have support. We've found a reason to stop, but then obviously on the way back down, printing through this this low again to come back into that downtrend. Obviously, we have the high, which gets, you know, all these highs here. We're kind of in this mini trend. We failed to get past lows here, so clearly, okay, we failed to print past. Clearly, we're coming back up now, so we should be in a scenario where we've done a higher low now. We then reverse properly and shift upwards, but we've come back into resistance, so we reverse again through this low. So now we're back in that downtrend, so we know this is going to be a high interest sell area here on top of this breakup block. And I see people, obviously I scroll on Twitter, people trade the same thing I look at, and people use this quite commonly as a method of a sell, if you will, or a method of an actual trade. And it's not just, you know, looking at the market, it's actually a setup. So this is something I really wanted to highlight here on Well-Liquid Finance as a potential area to focus on. Now, I'm not saying this is guaranteed, nothing's ever guaranteed, but I did want to highlight the idea that we have something which is actually formed, which people use, I see commonly, and this isn't just a me thing. So we do have resistance here, and to actually give some numbers, the midpoint of this resistance is about 2285. To fill this gap would also be there. Now, we also, if we were to look at range high to range low, equilibrium's about 2275. So coming above that would be about resistance at this 2285 area. So I do think we could come up a bit to finally fulfill this area. Obviously, we did form resistance in this order block as well, which also sits about this midpoint, about 2290, let's say. So I do think we can retrace it maybe a bit higher for Well-Liquid Finance, especially the fact that we've come from this massive resistance area, or this massive support area even. I do want to highlight all these lows, though. Look at all these lows. These lows are going to be a great target for us to want to look at. We have, obviously, the main low here, these 5 lows, this low, all the way here. It's going to be a great area to target if we can find that resistance and come through. Not only do I think we will target this area, but obviously, even though this is the range, and a trade you would take would be, you know, finding your short above here and then coming to target this one. I think we could also equally target this low as well and come through the whole thing. But obviously, I'll keep it, you know, tame. All right, I'm not going to say we're going to dump all the way to, you know, 16 cent or whatever. But I do want to highlight that this could be a potential setup to consider for Well-Liquid Finance. I mean, we also come into it here. We do have a high there. We have kind of have these equal highs here. So I do think we have a lot stacked up here to run through before we come back downwards. And we can see we've had this little reversal which brings us back downwards towards this area here. So I do think we are going to want to take, you know, we've come past here, which is external. This is external now. As we are in this downtrend, we're going to come to an internal. So internal is going to be these highs and all these areas, and the next is external, either going to be these lows or these lows. So we're going to stack to this area, stack to this area, stack to this area. So we're going to want to take these lows if we are coming back down into a sell position or a sell scenario. This is also someone, if they wanted to look at head and shoulders and market maker sell model, it's kind of it's not the same thing, but the pinnacle of the sell area for reversal obviously is going to be, you have your higher highs and higher lows, and then you're going to have your highest high, and then you're going to have a low, and then lower highs. So if you look at this scenario, a lot of people which look at, you know, head and shoulders, it is, you know, technically is this. You have your left, your right, your head. So technically it's going to be that, but it's more just a reversal in general. I don't like coining it as a head and shoulders. It's more of a reversal in general. But if you were to take that idea, quote unquote, you would see we have this whole scenario going on. Obviously, this low's down here, wherever these exact lows are going to be. But in general, where you have, I don't care about this line. I don't really care about that. But it's more about the fact that we've had this area, especially on the 4 hour. This accumulates into one high where you have this move upwards, and now we've kind of come through this on the 1 hour, and we could potentially find a lower high here before we come back downwards for Well-Liquid Finance. So I know that I spent a long time, maybe like 20 minutes on Well-Liquid Finance. I do want to move on. I do not think this coin deserves as much time as I've spent on it. We do need to go on to Bitcoin. But anyway, I'll look at the chat quickly. Manjeet say hello, Manjeet. Thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Think crypto. Let's CRO, baby. I will look at CRO in a minute. Again, obviously, even though obviously I've been the negative Nancy of CRO, you know, I have obviously tweeted. I do want to tweet again. I'll probably tweet after the stream about the CRO chart, because you know, there's no really. I think we've tweeted. I don't see the point in tweeting about Bitcoin, because everyone is going to tweet about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana. So why should I bother looking at them when everyone else is going to do it? So I'll probably tweet about CRO after the stream, like I just said. I'm quite confident in CRO. I've obviously been a negative Nancy for the entire time. 22 cent, the entire time. We got to 34. Everyone's calling for, you know, $10, $5, $1, $2, whatever it's going to be. And yes, we could hit some of those targets, or at least one of those targets in the foreseeable future. But we have to be realistic in the moment. If we're going to have a massive pump like this, we're going to want a big retracement before we continue upwards. It's just that simple. So again, 22 cent. I talked about the potential for reversal. We might not see it in this move. We might have one more lower low, but I do think at some point soon within this 22 cent range, 22.1, 22.2, we're going to see our low at some point. Now I know there's a lot of people coming for 19 cent. Now I don't think that's out of the woods, but we will get to it. Obviously, I will give my full opinion after all the other charts I've got to cover. So I spent a lot of time on Loyalty Finance. I don't mind doing it though. But from an analytical point, do you think we can see correction before November? Well, I think, because again, this a lot of people were saying this Wednesday was supposed to be, or last Wednesday, or the obviously event last week we had. A lot of people said this was supposed to be the moment we were supposed to have in the market, which caused us to pump. And obviously, there's some people who believe in that, some people who didn't. Now, again, I think it's foolish to believe that something like what happened on Wednesday. I believe it was Wednesday, all right? I'm not mixing up my dates. But what happened last week anyway? A lot of people, and I agree, it will play effect on the market, especially on lower time frames, and it did. But I think people exaggerate, and I said this last week when we talked about what was coming last week in terms of data points. I think people sometimes can take it too far in terms of how much is actually going to play effect on the market. Now, I'm not a professional, I'm not licensed, so this is just based on my opinion. So people opinion versus people opinion. Who's going to be right, who's going to be wrong? It's just opinion at the end of the day. But I didn't think it was going to make that much of a difference in terms of, okay, we're going to have this data come out, it's going to be so positive, and we're going to rip to 130k. We haven't. We went up and we went back down again, and we didn't really move. And now we're kind of coming down again. Now, I think we did need this move upwards towards the higher time frame, because if you look at Bitcoin on a daily-ish, or I believe daily, it's done this. So we need that retracement. Same thing we've done on CRO. Same thing. We've had this massive move. Obviously, we had the high. We ripped past the high. We dumped past this low. We're going to need that retracement again. Same thing. Kind of a reversal scenario. We're going to need that big retracement to do that lower high before we continue downwards. And we're doing that. If we might have stopped doing that, we might continue to do that. Obviously, I will talk about it in a second. But in terms of a correction, I still wanted for 90k, and I did agree on the fact that at some point we're going to go up. And time and price, people talk about this a lot. Obviously, if you guys watch anybody else, and obviously I don't expect you guys to be, crypto warehouse, cultists and only watch us and that's it. But there are some people out there who, let's say Crypto Life, and they watch Crypto Life and that's it. That's fine. But obviously there's people out there, and a lot of people, time and price is very important. Now, I'm not a 5-minute trader, but I understand on some lower time frames, price, especially when you're trading market opens and market closes, are very vastly important. Obviously, Asia Open, America Open, London Open, going from Asia to London, there's certain times where things occur quite consistently. And I agree with that. Time and price is a very important thing. And I think, and you can't just say, oh, it has to go down and X, Y, Z. I think I want it to go down, and I think it will go down, but there also will be, there will hit a time where we will run out of time before we go up again. Structurally, within the cycles of how the market flows, there will hit a point where we don't have enough time to go down and then go upwards. But I do still think we could have a correction. Now, I am still calling for this downtrend we are starting and continuing to do on Bitcoin. And I do want to see these 93k areas. I know Mike has, 100k. We have certain different areas, or whatever it is exactly he has. Obviously, KB has his areas within 90k as well. There's a lot of people who think 90k, and I am one of these people, about 93k. And if you look at the weekly, which obviously, you know what, I'll bring it up as we're talking. Now it's going to get very messy here because there's got a lot of stuff here. I've already talked about this whole idea of the high to the low coming into this buy area. I've talked about this buy area. I can't even remember when. Obviously, we have this 93-ish K area. So I want it to do that, especially coming from the fact that, we've had high, low. We sweep this high, turtle soup, liquidity sweep, whatever you want to call it, whatever. High, low, high, printed through the low. And now we're retracing. We've filled this gap. We've retraced. There's a lot of people calling for a high here. And I did talk about 118k. We did some areas here. But regardless of where the exact price is going to be, we have a lot of resistance where we are now. I was obviously wanting us to fill this weekly gap here. Obviously we've filled this quite nicely. Wherever we see resistance, we're going to be coming down again, and if we print past this low and continue, this is us. We've had this print past low. If we have a lower high and we print lower, this is us properly coming down now. So where's the target? And obviously I say this all the time, we go down until we have reason to stop. Where's that going to be? We have a major low at 98, and then we have a gap at 93, or 90, yeah, basically 93. And that's pretty much what we have for Bitcoin. So I don't want to see Bitcoin come to some of these areas before we pump again. And we have done this previously. Again, we had a low on the weekly low, sweep the high, and we've done this before. We had this, it might not look the exact same, but we've had a massive pump. We had a low. Oh, here we go, guys. Here we go. 140k, here we come. Sweep the high, printed past it, boom, here we go. We hit the gap, and then we pumped again. And it's just this. This is all we've done. And I think we'll have the same thing. We're going to have a major low, we're going to have a major high. And I think we're going to continue to do this as we've found the weekly for so long. The same thing here. We had a bit of a longer retracement here, but it still came into these major gap areas. And if we draw the major low to major high, where's below equilibrium, it's going to be within this area here. So obviously we filled this area, we failed to swing here, we came upwards. So we've had this move twice already in this area and this area, where on the weekly and on basically every time frame we've had a massive downtrend. And same thing I was saying on the World Finance, where if you're on the 4 hour and not looking at the weekly or XYZ, and we're in this massive uptrend on the 4 hour, there's going to be a point where we stop going up. And the likelihood chances the weekly or the daily is going to tell you where we're going to stop at. Same thing here, and I think the weekly is telling us where we're going to stop at. If we have this reversal, which has happened twice already, in this cycle and this cycle, I think we'll have this reverse again, and we're going to come down to our point where we stop at. Where's the two areas we could focus on? Taking out this low and stopping at this buy area, which is going to be about 93k, wherever it is exactly. But obviously, on the grand scheme of things, this low is about equilibrium. So minimum low I would see in this kind of cyclic, if you will, move is going to be this 98.3 area minimum. If we continue this trend downward, I think we will do, personally. But minimum, it's going to be that 90k area. If not, the most appetizing, pleasing area for me. Because number one, we reversed with this candle. And one of the things you see a lot is when the candle prints through a high and forms a market structure shift through a gap. These are high probability buy areas, if you will. So we can see we had this massive down area. We had all these highs, which got just absolutely printed through. So this is going to be a very tasty area, if you will. Same thing here. We had two candles downwards, which took this low and filled the rest of this. So these two sets of candles are going to be a good buy area. So I will also target this as a buy area. So we have the top end of this order block, market structure shift with this gap, and we have a gap formed. So the likelihood chance that this is a support area is vastly high. We have an order block here. There we go. We have this order block and we have this gap here. This is going to be a buy area. Obviously, it comes towards the 88k. I know I'm saying 93k, but minimum 98k. We have this area to buy. I personally think this is a brilliant area to buy on the higher time frame for Bitcoin to do our weekly low or higher time frame weekly low before we pump above 124k. And not only that, are we pumping up all the way up here? But again, obviously pointing out the fact that we need time to do this. So, there will be a point where we'll hit a time somewhere where we're not going to have enough time to get down towards this area. But if we continue what we're doing now, we've got plenty of time to come down and come upwards. However long it takes. It could be a couple candles. What I mean? Like, we can have moves like this, 17% down in a week. We can have movements like this. This came up 48% in 3 weeks. Well, it says I know it says 14 days, but 3 candles, obviously 3 weeks. So I think we can have these moves. We can have these big moves. If we have this low, if we have this lower high, we have a massive, we have obviously big old expansion, decent retracement. We find our lower high, and then we can dump again. We can go down really fast. So again, we'll see how it goes, but that's what I'm thinking for Bitcoin. And I will quickly glance at the lower time frame. I do want to move on though quickly because we've got a lot to cover, and then we are halfway through the stream. Kishan, let's be ready for a short. It's obviously not financial advice. Again, you want to be, I'm not licensed. I'm not saying this guaranteed will happen, but this is, I think this makes sense. And I think, obviously people have the different strategies, but I think if you think about your strategy fundamental, or if you think about your method of analysis fundamentally, and it makes sense, even at a simple term, I think you can use it. So obviously, like, there's like money flow like RSI strategies, whatever. I get some of these things. I get some sort of oscillators. I mean, I personally, obviously, I have used oscillators in the past. I have continued to develop myself, and I continue to develop myself. And I'm not perfect. I don't think anyone is perfect, where they are constantly good at everything and they can't continue to develop at all. I think people can continuously develop, even at their what seems to be their best position, if you will. And I like looking at just price action, but there are oscillators and strategies based on data, which I think can work absolutely. And I think if people just took a tiny bit of biased, what's the word for it, like building a bias on higher time frame or lower time frame, I think if people just took a tiny bit of that alongside their oscillation strategies, I think it would help a lot of people. Yeah. But anyway, I think this makes sense. Even if we don't just go off this single example, we can go off this example. Same thing happened. This one was even closer to this one, by the way, because obviously this one, yes, we did have the high, although we didn't take any highs, we just continued a downtrend here. But this one was a lot like the one we potentially might have had now. Again, time frames might be different. It might take longer or shorter. Perfectly fine. Obviously, this one took ages. This one didn't take relative. I mean, obviously, we can probably even measure this, to be fair. I don't know if I can. Where's the measure tool? There it is. So if we go from, like, let's say this candle towards the max low, let's say this obviously took that long, this high to this low. Instead of taking this, it took 112. We have a high, we took the high, and obviously we haven't done the low yet. But in terms of these moves, it can go faster, it can go shorter. So it's like, I don't think it's I don't think we can't compare this move to this move, even though they're not exactly the same. So this one was pretty much this is the exact same move. We have a high on the weekly, we have our lows getting printed, we have a sweep of the high on the weekly, or every time frame. We have a massive dump towards a buy area. But bearing in mind, if we look at the actual prints of this, if we actually look at the prints, this candle printed through this last high. Obviously, we had this high, regardless, we printed through. We have these moves downwards. In terms of major highs, these highs, major highs, obviously we have a bit of a high here. Yes, we did print through this. But in terms of these major highs I see here, the first print through was this candle. So again, same concept where, okay, we have a massive dump and then we print through. This is going to be a support area. Not only that, obviously, we don't really want to look at coming down to here because, again, the gap's here. So this is a bit of a difference here. But regardless, this is the candle which printed through this high to have a major market shift upwards. Again, we had a failed swing here. Yes, we did fill some gap down here. We had a failed swing. I mean, same thing here. Look at this gap. Same thing. Obviously, this one was already in an uptrend, but probably on the lower time frames, you can see we kind of hovered a bit. We failed to get up. We kind of came down a bit, and then we printed through this high, the major high. We printed through this candle, and then the gap we used here, we filled was this print through. Same thing here. This print through. This is the gap we formed. We use this one pretty nicely. And this is why I think same thing here. We have the candle which prints through this last high, which brings us upwards, is this candle with this order block. So this is probably the strongest gap of all of them, because this one actually has an order block as well alongside it. So, I think this makes perfect sense. I think we'll do this. I'm really yapping here. Let me move on a bit. So what were we talking about? Let's see. So 4 hour here. So we came up to the top end of this area towards about 118k. We've retraced a bit. We haven't printed a low. We have had quite a bit of expansion. What we have talked about, I will go to the daily here though, is coming from this low to this high, which we had I believe a 4 hour gap, and we have this 118.2 order block. So I think the lowest area of max, or not max, but I think the lowest area I could easily see is coming into within this 118.2k. We might, not financial advice, we might have one more pump upwards for Bitcoin. It'd be great if we can get towards this gap at 119.2. I'm not guaranteeing this. Do not long, or obviously do what you want. Again, not financial advice, but I'm not saying this will happen because, again, lower time frames we might be reversing. I want to quickly see. You can see major low here, 114, major low here. We wicked past this. Technically, we didn't print past. We have a massive order block here. We wicked past this low, came into this. We have this candle here. So we do have a bit of a support here. We kind of came into it. Now we're coming back upwards again. You can see we've started a bit of a move upwards. We don't have too much resistance. We might have a gap here. If we look at retracement, though, again, this gap could be something of interest. We can see we have a candle down, coming through this low, candle up, candle down. This is actually a breaker block as well. We don't actually have a liquidity area, but we do have a breaker block on a gap, so this could be a potential sell area at 116.7. Let's go to the 4 hour though. We do have a bit of a gap, but there's not really much. What I will say though is we have printed through these candles here with this move, so I would obviously be wary of that. But again, on the 4 hour, if we just do this singular candle for this down close, which gets printed through, we can see we've kind of come into this area and we're starting to slowly move upwards. Not too expansive though, so it's not like we've had a massive pump upwards. And you can kind of see like we've had a massive move upwards, towards more resistance area, and we've kind of come down with a pretty expansive move. And if we go to the maybe the 8 hour to see the actual gaps, we can see we do potentially have a gap here. We might want to obviously be careful of. We can see we have this candle comes down, fills obviously this mini gap, with obviously this wick coming down, massive move upwards, so this candle should be resistance. We also have this as a breaker block, so something we looked at on the World Liberty Finance, kind of a breaker block here, where if we look at this retracement, equilibrium's above here, so somewhere near this midpoint, we might see resistance. But again, this is some lower time frame stuff. I don't want to give feelings on a chart. I would want us to come a tiny bit higher towards this order block, but I also want to be aware of the fact that we also might not print through that. Or we might not do that. That is perfectly fine. So in terms of looking at this breaker block, we have this area technically with a gap here, which obviously we are slowly retracing upwards. So, we might see reversal. We might not hit up into this area. We are above equilibrium here, and we have taken this high with this move, and we've filled this actual gap here. I haven't even seen that gap. Because the gap's on the 8 hour, to be fair, but we have taken some of these highs here with this wick and failed to print past this high, and we've come down. So we might, we might be near reversal positions soon. But either way, I do think we could retrace on Bitcoin within the foreseeable future, especially filling this weekly gap here we've had for a while now. So yeah, I do want to move on though. Regardless, I do want to go to Ethereum quickly, because we do, I do have a lot of other coins to cover. So with Ethereum on the 4 hour, we have had obviously this retracement. We've started to come downwards. This is fine. Again, we had some highs here. We wicked past here with this dump. We have this last up close candle before this massive down close. If we draw this along as an order block, you can see we found decent resistance at this midpoint area, pretty good. And obviously we've retraced once more towards this propulsion block, coming towards this wick. This could be a rejection block, but it could be some on the 1 hour. So you can see we wick past this low here, with here, and then we pump upwards with this last closed candle here. So you can see we kind of we've had this support being used. We kind of found a bit of resistance, but we're obviously continuing back upwards here. In terms of what we have, again, I want to talk about we have obviously this candle to fill. A bit of a gap here. We had a bit of a dump. We filled this gap. Form resistance on the lower time frame, came down one more time into this support area on, I believe, the 4 hour. I want to go back to the 1 hour here, because we do potentially have we haven't really found major retracements in this massive move downwards, but obviously we do have some gaps on the 1 hour, so obviously there's some potential there. But again, I don't want to look at the 1 hour retracement when on the higher time frame this is our support area. So even though the lower time frames precede the movements on the higher time frames, we do want to pay attention to higher time frame support points. So we do obviously have this breaker block again, high move, which takes these highs with a down close, which should be a negative. Actually, no, this actually prints there, to be fair, now that I'm looking at it. Wait, does it actually? Because this is just a support area, but this actually, there we go. This is probably a bit better here. We have up close. Actually, it's a set of candles, to be fair. Let me draw this properly. There we go. So set of up with this down, which covers it. Actually, no, it only covers this candle. I lie. I need to draw this properly. I'm moving everything on my chart. I need to stop doing this. Up close, down, up, down. So obviously we have this move. We move past this low. We move past the high here. And obviously we've used it as support previously within this area. Obviously we have this proportion area. I'm going to draw this back a bit because it's kind of in the way. And then obviously we have some lows here. But again, if we fail to get past this low, we could continue back upwards. We could actually get back upwards towards where we want to go. And again, remembering what we want on the daily. If we just look at the daily, this is where the retracement is. It's not like it's on some random time frame. The daily, to be fair, actually the daily low is probably here. I should probably draw it properly to there, but regardless, we have this move upwards towards this area. Obviously we filled this area, took some highs, whatever. We had some resistance probably on the 4 hour. If we go back to it, we might potentially have some areas here. We had these highs we took. I thought I found something earlier. Yeah, we do have this. To be fair, we have a print through these lows with this gap. We have a move upwards of these candles with a gap here which we filled, and then a massive dump. So this is also a order block here, or a sell area, whatever you want to call it. If we move this across, this is probably where we found our resistance area. Yeah, pretty good. You can see nearly coming to the top point of that, finding resistance at that midpoint. So good resistance area. Came down, found our continuation downwards. So again, all it looks like to me on the dailies, we've had this massive pump upwards, we've had this slow retracement downwards towards where we're going to find our support and continue upwards. So I still am targeting Ethereum to go higher again, especially after we've had this move upwards, move higher. Obviously, we actually technically have not got above this high in this singular move, but I do think we can have, a move like this before we continue higher. I do think we have one more move upwards for Ethereum above highs before we dump. Obviously, I know Ben has been saying that as well, but I do think this is in the playbooks. Again, I've said this plenty of times. If Ben's saying it, then I'm pretty happy in it. If someone else can be wrong who's of high stature, I think I'm not in some crazy loony bin who's saying some random thing which no one agrees with. I do think we have that move upwards, and I do see validity in it. I do think we have potential support within this whole area, perfectly fine, which allows us to continue upwards. And I think somewhere near where we are, and I could probably look at the lower time frames to find reversals. Again, we obviously looked at the 1 hour here and whatnot. We have all these highs. We've had a nice little pump up here again to come upwards. But again, it's not really it's nothing major here. It's not really anything crazy. It's just really us continuing to move upwards. Obviously on the 50-minute we do have these massive gaps which obviously we're trying to get back up towards. So if we look at that, major low to major high, this is actually probably a good sell area even if we draw this properly. This actually comes really nicely into a sell area, so we might not see a reversal right now. We could go lower now that I'm looking at the lower time frame. Again, we want to, even though I say on the high time frame you want to watch to see if we're where the actual support is, so we know relatively where we are now. Maybe taking this low within 4,400 4,390, this area basically is going to be a good support area. We also can use lower time frames to see if we're starting to reverse and start a good uptrend. But again, obviously we have some gaps here. Looked pretty bad on the 50-minute with a massive retracement here. So we do want to kind of be careful of what we're doing. Even within this whole 50-minute, we haven't even had that retracement yet, really, to go even higher. So we do want to be careful. But even within this equilibrium, within here, the gap actually is a bit higher, to be fair, about 4,520. But that obviously sits within this 30-minute gap here. So we could fill this gap and then continue lower if we obviously don't find any higher. And even if we do go higher, we do have some gaps here. So it looks like we've had one massive move downwards. We've obviously come into this resistance area, I believe was, what was it, a gap or something? Oh no, the order block on the 1 hour. Oh no, what is this? Oh yeah, here it is. So we have the move upwards above these highs for this gap. Obviously taking this area and coming back downwards again for that resistance. I actually should draw it a bit higher as it is this series of candles. It looks a bit better now on the 1 hour here, but regardless, we do have that area as resistance. So even from there, we do have reason to stop in this whole area. Even if it's just this and we continue higher, this is plentiful resistance coming from a higher time frame resistance, so this should be a good sell area. So I don't know if we're reversing right now for Ethereum. We do have some resistance to get through, but a good uptrend could continue through that. But I feel like I'm yapping, and as soon as I feel like I'm yapping on a chart, I should either change the time frame or change the coin. So what I will say, I'll go to the weekly just to see what the weekly's doing, or how the weekly's looking, or maybe we can't really see much on the weekly. I think the weekly's fine. I mean, I think we've had I don't want to draw anything because it will show, because we had this gap we kind of tickled into, came upwards. This is now a support area. We had a gap as well, taking that high which we came into, and now you can kind of see we've had that move downwards, and now we've had this arc downwards, and now we're starting to get a bit upwards for this area here. Obviously we took that high and wicked past it. We haven't printed through this candle, so it's not exactly resistance, and now we're starting to kind of etch upwards for the weekly. You can see we took this low for this candle, and now we're starting to arc a bit. So I do still think we are continuing upwards, even just based on singular weekly candles. I do think I want Ethereum to continue higher anyway, to get up towards the last highs. But I think even if we do have one more move upwards, it'll be one more move upwards. Again, we've used this gap, we've come into this gap. We do have some gap down area here, but if we remember what we had on the weekly, the range was, if I show it, okay, it's a bit messy. I don't know where it was. I really don't remember where it was. I'll just draw it again, doesn't matter. I'll just draw it again. It was this low to this high, I'm pretty sure. Was it this low? I think, or maybe it was this whole move. I can't actually remember exactly where it was. But again, it was basically, we looked at 2,700 as a good area to target as our major low. Similar how Bitcoin has, 93, 90k area, wherever it is. Ethereum has 2,800. So I do think, we do have that one move up, just based on the weekly move on each candle. So I do think we are continuing back upwards. So still confident on Ethereum. So Solana, let's see. Actually, I haven't looked at Solana on the weekly in a while. We do have a bit of a gap candle here. We might want to fill this area, even because this is the thing. Like, even on a lot of even if you form these gap areas, like there's plenty of times. I mean, you might not fill the entire thing, but if you just look at singular candle by candle basis, and you have these gap areas, for example, like we probably had this down move, massive candle, we probably had one more down move, and then a move back upwards, and then you can see we kind of came up into this candle a bit, and then came down and printed like this. So you can see, even if you don't have a gap area per se, you can still come into these areas. If you have a massive candle, massive down close, and obviously you kind of come into this area. So just looking at it on the weekly, which obviously translates to lower time frame stuff, just looking at it on the weekly, like we could have that move where we've had a move upwards into obviously resistance we've had on the 4 hour, I believe. We could have this move on the weekly downwards into this area before we move back upwards. We can see we kind of had a bit more of a move there. You can see we're slightly floating. We've moved upwards, moved downwards. We've not exactly moved. Daily, obviously, you can see it a bit easier. Even here, though, like you can see, we have this, we have a gap here, and we come up and then come back downwards again to print positive. So individually, even if you don't print a gap, you can probably expect, just based on the weekly, okay, well, we have this massive candle here, and you can see we've come upwards, or we probably had a retracement initially. You can see, like, with a retracement initially, then came upwards. So this would have been down, up, and now we're coming back down again. We haven't printed yet, so we maybe could expect the rest of this, the rest of these day and 8 hour for the weekly candle to continue downwards again, trying to get back into this area. And if we use this as confluence with what we expect to happen on this time frame, we have the low to the high here coming from this resistance. We want to see it potentially go back downwards again, and you can see as well, like we've had this high, low, high, and then we've kind of expanded a bit. We have this inverted gap here, as you can see. If I just draw this out and go to the 4 hour, we have a gap here with another gap. We can see we've kind of had this like price range here. Even if you look at it on the 4 hour, we enhance it. We had a gap here, a little tickle into it, filled this 4 hour area. I think it's a 4 hour area. Yeah, massive down close for 4 hour there. Coming back to where we are now. If I can, there we go. Filled this pretty much to the T, very nice. Dumped down, massive candle printing upwards, massive print through it, and now we're starting to retrace into it. Now, I'm not saying we're guaranteed to see resistance here, but this could be a good, reversal. We haven't printed through a major low or anything on the 4 hour, but obviously, again, if you look at it with this, it's like, okay, we have the low, we have the high, wicked through it, and then continue to print. You can see we printed through this move, and obviously with the 4 hour actually, with this print through, you can see the low, we printed through the low, printing past the gap. So we've printed through this gap, came to the midpoint, and then came down again. So we do have that as well. And obviously we are printing through this. But if we look at the 4 hour, so the 1 hour is currently kind of doing that. But looking at the wider trend on the 4 hour, you can see we've had that move upwards, move downwards, where we've printed through this gap. We're slowly retracing. You can see down, close, up, close, down, close, slowly retracing upwards towards this gap, potentially filling it, or potentially, using it as an inverted gap and potentially finding resistance. But if we look at a retracement, if we were to come up from here, we'd actually have to come a lot higher than where this low is. So we could come even higher. If we go to the daily again, we're looking like we want to fill this gap a tiny bit as well. So I could expect some sort of resistance nearby. And again, we are expecting, or I'm expecting, to want to come a bit lower towards some of these areas. Obviously, we've had a really nice trend, massive pump, massive dump, all this sort of stuff. And then we had this massive expansion, and we haven't come back to retrace. So we've kind of had this move where we could potentially see a lower high here, and then come downwards towards support area, where we could maybe see one more move upwards. And again, we have this massive area here. So, I know I said this already. I would want to see, Solana come back down, I wanted to see it at 225 come down, and 250 I want to see it come down, and now I'm saying 275, but I do want to see Solana come down at some point. And again, same idea on the weekly as we already talked about. The weekly, if we were to use this weekly idea to come down to fill this, even if we print on this weekly candle in this formation, we'll have a gap here on the weekly. So we have a weekly gap. We want to print down on the weekly. We might have a down close candle to fill to 212, or maybe not weekly. We might have a wick down into it on the weekly candle. So either way, if it's not this candle or next week's candle, I do expect our retracement to come into this area to then come upwards one more time, is what I would expect. And obviously we've had this range from the high to the low. We've come down, we've had our move upwards to final resistance, wherever it may be, and then come downwards. You know, it's what we've wanted to look at. Obviously, it has been a slow burner to do that. So I'm still interested to see if we want to retrace. We might produce a lower high here based on what we have on the 4 hour with an inverted gap. We might start to flip and come down for Solana, but obviously we will see how it goes. I'll obviously be streaming. I believe it'll probably be Tuesday. I might, depending on how it is, I might try. If we have something Wednesday, obviously I do stream Thursday. So it might be better if I do Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. That might actually even out better. So I might do it Monday, might do it Tuesday. I'll be back by the time this starts to print through. Obviously, like I said on Thursday stream, I'll be back by the time if we respond off here. And obviously, you can see, based from Thursday, basically, you can see, this was basically when we looked at Solana, and I was saying, obviously, during the stream, I want to come back on Saturday and see if we respond from this area. Obviously, you can see we had a nice response. We flipped some gap areas, flipped some potential buy areas to now sell areas, and we could potentially want to see ourselves, continue downwards and potentially reverse. We haven't printed through lows. We haven't done a proper structure shift. If you look at this low, we have printed through that, and if you look at this low here on an individual candle level, we have printed through that candle body. So changing state of delivery is very valid potential there. You can see in terms of this move down to move upwards, we can see we printed through this here. So we have printed through that there. So during this, as we continue, we target this low for market structure shift on the 1 hour. So we have this move here. We can see we printed through that really nicely, and obviously I'll be tracing upwards back into this 4 hour area. So I do think we would want to come back downwards again for Solana. Obviously, we'll see how it goes. We will watch it. We will watch it. So what we had, let's see. So obviously we're talking about coming back from this area. We talked about us having that retracement. So what we had, here we go. So yeah, Thursday. So basically this was the stream. We were basically here, and I was saying we found that resistance on the 1 hour, whatever it was. We came into this support area. Again, looking at a good downtrend here. Again, coming from the high to the low, massive move downwards. From the high to the low, coming above equilibrium at least, finding resistance there on the 1 hour. We've had a retracement, and what we've had a wick through this low. We haven't printed yet. So a failed swing, but again, same ideology here, coming to potentially fill this candle before we come down again, on the same idea like you have plenty other times. I'm trying to find a good example of it. So like we have a low which prints high, we have a massive dump, and then this candle comes upwards. We did print down, so the expectance that we wicked upwards to fill some of this candle, wick downwards after we filled it, and then printed negative. So even though, again, somebody might not have the gap, you could still have the gap-like action where we tiny wick down to take lows. We have equal lows down here on the daily, as you can see. Oh, actually, no, we took the low, never mind. We have a major low here. We take this low with this move. We come upwards and then come downwards and print negative. So we could come upwards towards 40, maybe not 44 exactly, but we could start to retrace. You can see as well this candle printed through this low to start back down in a downtrend. So if we just look at this based on like a 1 hour perspective and look at it like this, you can see this candle is plentiful above equilibrium here. We have highs here to target, and we have this gap. So we do potentially have some sell area at 44.3. So I could maybe expect price to come back up towards 44.3 before coming down one more time and having kind of like a higher low in this downtrend. And again, you can kind of see as well on a major swing, major area, major high, major low, major high, massive dump. We want to see that lower high in this kind of head and shoulder scenario. We want to see that. We have a mini one here. You can see, swing, massive pump, higher time frame, sell area, massive dump, gap here, printing into that gap here, and then dumping. You can also see as well here, we have an inverted gap. And this, a lot of people trade this as well, where they watch for reversals on a point of interest and then look for inverted inverted gaps or balanced price ranges where you form these inverted gaps and then you trade back up into them in this area, as you can see, and then you dump downwards. So again, perfect reversal there. But if you look at the higher trend, 4-hour kind of idea for these massive highs and lows, you can see it basically runs all the way up. Small high, small low, runs all the way up, runs all the way down. So we could have that last low. So same thing here. We print through here. We could want to maybe find a inverted gap. We don't have anything, so we just have this gap which forms from this print through. So this could be a good sell area at 44.2 if we do want to continue to do this. Again, we've already filled this area. We had this buy area at the 1 hour. Obviously, we worked through it. It looks like we're starting to try to come up again. And then maybe do a lower high before we continue downwards. I definitely want to see us continue to take these, these highs, equal highs here, this high, this major high, and then come up into here. So, 44 cent could be a good target for a lower high before we continue back downwards. You can kind of see here as well, as I just drew out, where you have that move. Just here, low to the highs, to the lows, high, major high for the resistance, and then massive dump, which obviously forms this gap. To be fair, we do have an inverted gap here, but if we look at the massive retracement we have, the gap really isn't into that major area here. We do also have an order block here at 44.4. If we just draw lower that to show it and go to the 1 hour, you can see this also sits in this gap. So we have a 4-hour order block here with this print up to print down. We have the gap here, obviously, to focus on. We could probably hand sit a bit better and draw it there. Here we go. So you can see massive run up, massive run down, which prints through the candles, and then have swing high, failed swing, move down. We might want that lower high. We have a 4-hour order block here. We have that low getting taken. So obviously, we don't really need to look at that. We have this major gap, important gap, order block, and a gap. This is going to be a good sell area. So 44.4, I'd probably say. Anyway. Yapping about syrup. We've gone over 7. I will speed run some of these. I'll give an update on Sui, CRO. Quick glance at XRP. I'm not too interested in XRP too much. Have a quick look at Sui, because obviously we want to look at this as it's been pretty good. So obviously I was showing this trade. We had here. I talked to Mike about this, and I don't think I entered on it, unfortunately. But again, same idea with the breaker blocks and whatnot. Here, even kind of on the 4-hour, you can kind of see we had a gap in the 4-hour and the breaker block. But anyway, it doesn't really matter. We had that reversal, as we've obviously been talking about. The buy area coming from this move upwards, which obviously we formed the resistance here in this whole move. Again, if we draw it, we had an order block formed here from this move, and you can see we come into the higher time frame buy area. Same thing we looked at World Liberty Finance. You can draw order blocks all you want, but you want to make sure you're using it in the right context, otherwise it's going to reverse. So it's like, okay, why do sometimes you use an order block and why do you sometimes reverse? Well, in this case, we come from a higher time frame buy area, or this major area which we've talked about for a long time now on Sui. So what's the likelihood chance that we've come into this major buy area on the weekly, and then we're going to use this random 1-hour order block or 4-hour order block and then reverse? It's not likely. So the likelihood chance is we have a massive pump up, reversal, breaker block, we continue upwards, we have that massive long, we come downwards, breaker block of support. Okay, we want to enter, take the high. We can see we have a nice little sweep past that high, taking some previous equal highs back here, and then we dump down. Same thing here in a beautiful uptrend on Sui. Again, I've been talking about $4.40 now. Again, I do want Sui to get back up towards its highs, $4.44 even. And if we go to the 1 hour and have a little look, I believe we had a little gap here. I don't know where it was drawn. A tiny little 4-hour gap here. We do have a massive, expansion here, to be fair. But, again, I'm not too worried about this not being a big old downtrend. A massive run upwards. Good run downwards, found support at a really good area here. We do have these 2 candles downwards, which take this little gap, so we do have an order block here. So again, same idea, and I actually have this drawn out here with this order block. Same thing. When you, this is the same thing I was talking about on World Liberty Finance here, where you can use individual concepts like a gap or an order block or a breaker block. You can use these individual components by itself, and fine, yeah, they can work as well. But you can also, if you can stack these components together, the likelihood chance of it working is a lot stronger. So one of the most common ones is an order block plus a gap. So an order block forms from down close into a buy area with a massive up close. So the chances of you forming an order block and a gap is quite high. So for example, obviously these 2 candles, we take the series of down close candles, we've come in to fill this gap area here, we have a massive pump, also we have an inverted gap here which obviously we filled. So again, all these confluences stacking up, you can see we printed past this gap here, used this gap as resistance, came down, used this gap as a reversal, also coming from, by the way, the breaker block. So we want to see that, we want to see a buy. You know, we have a shorter high for a buy to reverse to print through this. So again, even stronger. We have had a downtrend, but again, we've come to a higher time frame buy area with the breaker block here. So what do? Well, we print through this gap because again, we've come from a buy area. So we print through the gap. We did do a lower high. We did do a shorter high here. It allowed us to fill this inverted gap and then pump to come past this high and start an uptrend again. Perfectly fine. So same thing here. Obviously, we formed that gap, 2 down close, fill the gap, come up in this singular candle. Great order block at about 36.1. The low was about 36.112. The order block was about 36.136. So if you're longing either at the midpoint of the gap or the order block itself, it's a great entry. It's like, it's what is that? Like 0.04% of an entry, like, or 0.04% of a move. It doesn't matter. It's a tiny move, and obviously from there we're starting to come back upwards. Now, again, I'm not guaranteeing it's gonna pump, but again, we're in a really strong move now. And also on the daily, all we've really done is fill this kind of gap area. We've kind of come to fill it, and now we're coming upwards. Obviously, we do have this 3747 area. So is that an area we want to focus on? 3747? Not really. I mean, we do have an inverted gap, but I don't think it's going to matter unless we have, you know, move, fill that, you know, and then we obviously continue upwards. But again, we're in this massive uptrend. I don't consider this being an area where we have a massive reversal. We don't really have much of a gap area here. We don't have anything of concern. I do think we are going to target this high at $3.97. So even if it's here, you can go to some lower time frames and try and find an entry if you were to trade this. Not financial advice. But if you see here, we have this down move into this candle here, and then we pump upwards. This is now an order block. You can see we're printing at that midpoint. This is a propulsion block now, so we do have support here. So we could, if we draw this propulsion block out with this candle, and we go to, let's say, the 15 minutes or whatever, you can see we have a gap here. So we do have an uptrend on the 15 minutes. We could retrace this perfect gap at $3.65, which is also nearing the midpoint. So maybe $3.65 exactly. We have this gap here. If I draw it out, you can see 15-minute gap here with a, what was that? Was that a 4-hour, I think? Yeah, we have a 4-hour order block. 15-minute gap. This could be a great, if it was to come down again, we can see low to the high. We are continuing this move upwards, low to the high. We could retrace down to fill this gap area, and if we draw it from the major low to the major high, we can see this gap area also sits below equilibrium to fill this area somewhere, let's say around, you know, $3.65.5, where it is exactly. Again here as well, you can see we take these lows in these down close, so we also have a 15-minute order block here, which midpoint top end sits about $3.66. So, you know, this could be a good area. I'm not saying you should long from this area, but if you're, let's say, within this area to long, taking that high, obviously having a stop loss below that low, or maybe the last low before that move upwards, 2.4 could be a good trade. Not financial advice, not saying you take this trade, but maybe something to watch out for. Obviously, again, you know, being careful. But again, I do think we are continuing this uptrend for SUI. I think we are on the uptrend. Let me just delete all the 15-minute stuff. I don't really want it on my screen. So yeah, I do think we are going to continue upwards for SUI. Taking that high easily, and maybe you just enter here really low leverage, or just buy in general and then sell at the top at $4. $4 is gonna be a great area. We have a tiny gap at $3.98. I'm gonna draw a tiny little wick on or a little horizontal ray on that just to show it. We also have up move here in this gap with a down move, so we do also have a an order block here as well, which starts at about $3.93. So we do have a bit of a resistance area sitting within this whole $3.93, $3.98. So we could kind of come up into this order block, fill this tiny gap, and then maybe have that as a high. So maybe you could target that area at $3.98. Actually no, I think so if we draw the gap, we can see we already used this order block. You can see this is the line for the order block. We came upwards and came downwards, so we obviously have this order block. I'm gonna make this a red area, and then we have this little gap here, $3.98. So we might go higher. I'm not saying this is guaranteed going to be the stopping point, but just in general, you know, we have areas to stop at for SUI. So I do think we are going to want to, you know, continue to do that. So anyway, SUI, pretty happy. Let me delete this. There you go. So CRO, I will go over really quickly. CRO, glance at XRP, glance at Moon, we can end the stream. So CRO, again, obviously we talked about this potentially being a breaker block. Again, I did make valid, I tried to emphasize the fact that I don't believe this will happen. I was saying if we flip this, it could be a breaker block, but this is resistance and we are in this massive downtrend. I have been calling for 22 cent down here. We have a major low here, but what we also have, interestingly, we have a down close to an up close, or down close, which doesn't really have a massive response. So technically a bit of a move like that. If we go to a daily though, you can see, you can actually enhance it a bit better with this move in this candle. Let's go back to the 4 hour. It's a bit clearer, to be fair. So we have this massive down close, and then we have pump upwards towards resistance. So this obviously, it should be support. Again, we're in a major sell area. We're coming from resistance. We have come down, and we're actually using the midline as resistance here. So you can see we've formed it as potentially support. We've flipped it, and now we're starting to use it as resistance a bit. So we could potentially have this as a breaker block and continue a bit lower. Obviously, we're wanting to probably target 22.4 as a low point. So for CRO, I do still think we might have a tiny bit move down. But again, I think for me, I've been looking at this blue area. I've been looking at 22 cent, around about 22 cent as a target. We've been near that area, really, really close here, 22.4. We could potentially have one more move downwards to take this low and continue to fill this gap area for CRO, and that I would want to see I would want to see CRO come back upwards again. Back up towards here. Now, I know a lot of people are talking about 19 cent, and there is this gap. And what I also want to highlight is obviously we printed through these highs. We already printed through these highs here with this breakaway gap and continued onwards. But we do have an also more than valid gap here at 19 cent. So this is another thing to have as potential. But the main gap I wanted to look at was this major move here. Obviously on the weekly, if we look at the weekly, where does the average sit? It's about 20 cent as well. So I've been calling for 22 cent. We could maybe go low as 20 cent for that middle gap here. Remembering the fact as well, we didn't really have much of a downtrend per se. We didn't really print through this low, but you can see these equal highs here, printing through, coming to this higher end resistance, retracing into this gap. We could go maybe a bit lower towards 20 cents, and then maybe pump higher again from this massive pump. But what I do want to draw as potential is from this major low to major high. You can see equilibrium's just about below 23,270. So again, could be great enough target towards 20 cent as well. So 22 cent was obviously my first target, main target for CRO. There's still potential to come down, but you know what I mean? Like, I do want to obviously be careful about it, and maybe at least fill this daily gap. At least fill this daily gap towards 22 cent. So I don't think we're done, but I am going to say my main focus for CRO is going to be watching for a reversal. It's just going to be watching lower time frames. We already know what's going on the daily and the weekly, continuing to fill this gap. Obviously, some gaps down here, 21.8, nearing 22 cent. But I want to wait for a reversal. I want to see if we can reverse. Because, major thing here, obviously, we have high, low, low, high, low. So in terms of major moves, low to high to low, we didn't print through a major high here. We had quadruple highs here. We wicked past it, came down. So again, just continuing downwards really with this. So the next major high obviously are going to be these obviously main wicks, or if we have this low to the high and then come past this low, this will be a major high. So if we can come up, come down, fill this gap towards 21.8, and then continue upwards, or maybe wick past this low and sweep it, we could also print past this high. So instead of having to target towards 28 cent as the main high, it's actually just going to be 24.5. So again, same thing we had with Bitcoin. The lower highs we do right now for CRO, and the weaker moves down we have, the easier it is going to be reverse. So if we start to do highs which are quite low, and we don't really pump upwards, our expansions upwards are really weak, and we don't really expand downwards, obviously coming into this support point, because again, this is a big expansion, really slow move upwards, not really massive expansion, especially coming from a retracement. I do think we are obviously going to come down one more time, and obviously if we look at this move, we obviously have a bit of a gap here. We have again, move upwards, move down. We have a gap here. We have an inverted gap here, about 24 cent, which we could maybe continue back upwards towards the top end of this resistance as well. But You know, I do think we are going to continue down towards this low, but the lowest highs we do, the easier it's going to be to reverse. So that is something to bear in mind. So I think my main focus for CRO to watch for is going to be to see if we can get past a recent high to reverse and start to pump on lower time frames, and start to actually get up towards, you know, some of these areas. But especially on the daily, it's like we don't really have a major high. It's literally 13 cent, then 38.7, and then that's it really. If we do it low at 22, it's going to be us getting towards 38 again. It's either going to be us printing past 38 or us doing a failed swing and then printing down again. And that is pretty concerning for CRO, but obviously not too bad. And, you know, I'm not that negative on CRO, but just something to bear in mind. But yeah, for me, CRO, I'm going to be watching to reverse. XRP. So we had the gap, we had some highs, we had the resistance. I think I might have looked at it off stream. I don't think I looked at it on stream. We are coming from a position of high to the low. Obviously, we took this low, slightly filled this gap, failed to get up. We haven't done anything too crazy yet. Especially on the 4 hour, we're not really doing too much. Trying to get down again, failed to get above this high. Again, if you look, you know, we have a move up, move down. You know, or if we look from, you know, these areas, massive move upwards, massive, you know, not really move down. And then we have a failed swing. You can see, like, we have we've come into this gap area. We have a massive dump in these consecutive candles. Where are we? Obviously, we had this daily gap which we filled as well, to bear in mind. 4 hour, I think. Let me draw it properly. We have not really. We have main this candle. It's this candle as main. You can see we stacked more resistance. Obviously, we had previous order blocks back here. You can see we've kind of come upwards to find resistance again. Obviously, we took these equal highs here, came downwards, and now dumping towards coming down. Failed to get past this high. So again, if we start to get past this low, that's going to be us doing a higher low, lower high, lower low. That's us in a downtrend, you know, starting to come back downwards. We might want to target towards these lows again, towards these gaps back, you know, down here. And if we look at the daily to enhance the gap, in theory, it only really starts at about $22.60, $2.40 area. Now, I know we had something big happen. I can't remember exactly what it was, but something happened with XRP. We did have a bit of a pump, I think, during this period, but I think it's going to mean us coming back down, not getting up towards this high from the daily gap, and then continuing downwards towards, you know, because we're still kind of doing this downtrend. You know, we haven't actually swung past the main high, main low, main high. Obviously, sweep the low, but failed to get up from the resistance, continuing downwards, potentially targeting lows again to get a bit deeper. So again, you know, massive run upwards, slow downtrend here, filling an area of $2.50, let's say, and then pumping towards highs, in theory. Again, we have also printed past these highs, so we are in this major area where we want to do a lower high, and then, or a lower low, sorry, or a higher low, and then get up towards $3.66. So XRP, pretty good. Last thing, I'm going to end the stream in like 2 minutes. This is still going, you know, still going strong, I suppose. Still kind of continuing downwards, nearing this gap area. Now, I remember talking about this on Wednesday. Where was it? I think it was Wednesday. So it was Thursday, Wednesday, I think, was here when I talked about it. Obviously, we didn't really give an update on it. Because obviously we were nearing this area on the daily, I think it was, yeah. Nearing this area, didn't quite get to it. You know, and we're kind of hovering back down again. We haven't really taken anything. This isn't really an order block, this individual candle. We are actually, to be fair, you know what, I lie. We did take these two lows. So this is actually individual candle, which had a print through. Technically is actually an order block, because we printed through these two lows, taking them, came upwards. So actually could potentially find support here, but I did want to see it come down a bit lower, especially for the fact that this midpoint isn't really barely on equilibrium position. So we might go a bit lower. Nearing towards that 444 area here. Either way, we've had this massive move upwards, slow retracement down towards this gap area. I do want to target this high at 79, so I do think Moon could be doing pretty well. Obviously, we've got the Wolfie scenario going on. We've got a lot of things positive coming out about Moon, so I do think it could be around about near here, a good buy area. As I was saying on Wednesday, it could be a good scenario if you want anything, obviously, on Wednesday's stream, to maybe hold it for a bit. You know, hold it, see if it can go higher, see what it can do, and obviously, you know, wait from there. But it's not like we whipped past this high. You know, we didn't fail to swing or anything. You know, we had these highs here, we printed through them, we came down to the low, had these highs, printed through them, we're coming down to do a low. Obviously here as well, we have an order block. Same thing here, same thing we've talked about, where you have an order block and a gap. So if you look here, we have two down close candles, into this gap we form here, a massive pump. Same exact scenario we have on, I think it was maybe Ethereum, or what was it? I can't remember what we were talking about. Whatever we call, I know I'm talking a lot. We covered it today. I can't remember where it exactly was, but we had an order block and a gap, and it stacks together really nicely. So same thing here. We have a gap, coming down. These consecutive down close candles coming into a buy area, massive move upwards. This is now going to be a buy area. So top end at least sits at the midpoint 4458. So I do expect maybe CRO might want to come down one more time. I know this is an order block technically. But in terms of strength of it, this technically was an order block as well, coming past all these lows, and you can see, we still printed above it and then came down. We have used it, but we're still coming downwards. So we could maybe have one more move downwards. But again, the Wolfie scenario is soon, so we might want to see ourselves get up. You know what I mean? We do also have this order block midpoint at about 4775. So we could maybe, on the relative to the weekly, have that last move down and then move upwards quite quickly, because it allows us then to have a weekly print above that midpoint. Importantly, I've just noticed we had this gap here, which we kind of inverted, and we barely used. You can see we kind of had a gap, we've inverted it. So we're obviously looking at this gap now. So we had this down close gap, printed upwards, and now we're kind of coming downwards towards here. And again, obviously remembering this as well, this move upwards, we just took this high. So we don't really want to be buying on a premium here, especially coming from this low point. This gap barely is in premium, so we don't really want to be buying here. Also, we did have an up close, but we had another gap here, which we formed. But anyway, we have an inverted gap here. So it looks like we, obviously inverted gap coming from a low, producing higher, swinging past this high, coming downwards now. We could have that wick not only into this gap on the daily, but also the top end of this gap at 442, let's say. So I do think we do have a bit of a stacked support point down about here, within this order block, within this area, to fill this entire area, about 43 cents, and then obviously continuing upwards. So obviously we'll see how it goes, but again, I'm pretty happy about Moon. I think we'll do well. But that is me. Okay, I know I've talked for, I don't even know how long. Okay, it's been ages. Obviously 20 minutes over. I know I'm taking up your guys' evenings. It might be dinner time for you guys, and I'm keeping you from your lives, so I will end the stream now. I appreciate you all for being here. I know some people weren't here because obviously I was doing it from 6 to 7 my time, but if you are here, I really extra appreciate it, because obviously I know I changed the time and it was a bit earlier. So shout out to you all. Shout out to you, Tito, I should probably say. Manji, I don't know who's still here, but shout out to you all. Okay, appreciate you all for being here. I will be back, obviously. I might try do Monday, because if I'm thinking about the division of it, it goes Monday, then we do Wednesday, and then I do Thursday. So Monday to Thursday is not bad, and then I've got Saturday. So I might do Monday. I do want to see how it goes on, like, obviously Solana and stuff. So it might be Monday, it might be Tuesday. Obviously I'll keep you guys posted on the Telegram. Obviously I'll still be in there as well. And I think that's about it. I think I'll keep doing the charts. If I see anything of extreme interest, I will keep you guys posted, but I never really do. Obviously occasionally see some small time frame trades, but that's pretty much it. Max is still here. Shout out to you, Max, appreciate it. Thank you too for being here. Excuse me. Yeah, that's it. Monday, pretty much. I'll you know what, I'll do Monday. I think I might lock it in for Monday, because I know Mike streams Monday. I don't know if there's a conflicts issue there. I'll again keep you guys posted. I think I'll be doing Monday, so obviously see you Monday. If not, and you guys aren't there, I will definitely see you guys Wednesday. I believe we're doing the Mew quiz. Obviously we did Maple, Wolf Swap, should be Mew. Obviously Michael gives some more updates on that, and that's it. Thank you guys. If you want me to talk to you guys about any of the charts I've covered today, or you've got any charts of your own, do message me in Telegram. I try to be there sometimes, because I don't get notifications, and when I do work during the day, if it's the charts or like working on other things, I don't have Telegram open all the time, or it doesn't notify me on my phone, for example. So I open it at like specific times. So if you message me and I don't get back to you, I will try to get back to you whenever I'm back on Telegram. But regardless, if you've got anything you want to ask or say or whatever, Telegram, I will get back to you. So thank you all of you. Appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your evening or morning or whenever. See you guys on Monday. Thank you. Goodbye.